political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Started off a few minutes late today, but we are here. Welcome to This is Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday, 6 to 8 on INTHEMIXXRADIO.com. I am your host, AJ Woodson, and we have the co-host, Dr. Bob. Yeah, Dr. Bob in the place to be. And we have the lovely Latina Lorraine Lopez in the place to be. Yes, you are on. Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. Oh, no, yes. Yes.
Okay, Dr. Bob,
señor.
Stop beating up the microphone there, Bob. There, Bobby? No.
You know how to endear yourself to me, AJ.
Welcome, everybody tuned in. Real quick, couple of people already tuned in. Donna Nolan said, hello, my friends.
Hola, Dana.
Okay.
Hola, Donna.
And we have, who else?
D. Wilson. What's up, D?
We have, okay. What's up, D? Tracy Cates is tuned in.
Tracy.
Shout out to Tracy. D said, good evening, AJ Woodson, Dr. Robert Baskerville, and Lorraine Lopez.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dr. Bob. Look at that. Dr. Robert.
That's right. In the house.
So, we just came across one of the biggest elections in our lifetime. There were a lot of historical firsts and historical wins throughout the country.
And recounts.
And recounts. Yeah, recounts, runoffs, and voter suppression. That is the theme of this year's 20 midterm election.
Yeah.
First and foremost, shout out to a friend of the show, a friend of all of ours, Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins.
That's my lady.
She just needed one seat to turn from Republican to Democrat, and she would officially be the Senate Majority Leader. I think there's been at least 3 or 4 seats that flipped over.
Mm-hmm.
And in January, she will be the Senate Majority Leader. And what that means, not only did she finally break through that glass ceiling that has been over her all this time, and after having a majority before and then having a split-off group, the Independent Democrat, whatever, the IDC, Jeff Klein and them, that started caucusing with the Republicans, it again took away from her power. Now they have all been voted out. She has the seats. She is the Senate majority, Democratic majority leader. And from now on, there's a phrase that I'm sure Bob is very familiar with, that is always thrown around, the 3 men in the room. Everything is decided between the 3 men in the room. Well, from now on, it can no longer be called the 3 men in the room.
I never was a 3 men in the room type of dude myself. To be honest with you.
I'm familiar with that term too, by the way.
I'm sorry.
You know,
Yeah,
hello.
yeah. Lorraine would be more familiar with it.
But
She
there's
she
no
does
longer-
all the
Dare you.
politics.
There's no longer. It is no longer 3 men in a room. From now on,
There's
From
a
at least
lady
right
in the
now,
house.
There's a lady in the house for the first time ever. So when it comes to budgets and all that other stuff, it will be the governor, Carl Hastings, the Assembly Speaker,
Mm-hmm.
and Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins.
Yes.
And while we have a delay on that, hold on. We want to give her a round of applause. We want to give her a glowing round of applause and congratulate her. That is a historical win. Other historical wins that we had here. Another person who's come on the show, Letitia Tish James, is now the first elected woman and first African American woman New York State Attorney General. That's another historical win.
Kudos to her. I voted for Sussman. I voted green on that line.
Sussman is the man, though. Sussman is the man, definitely.
I want everyone to know I voted green too. In that
Sussman is the man.
I don't even want to give y'all a rundown. Y'all might be like, "Oh, Bob."
I voted red, blue, and green. I voted all colors of the rainbow.
Yeah, I was one of those diehard, never Andy Como voters. So I actually cast my vote for Cynthia Nixon in the
Primary.
gubernatorial.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
But she didn't.
she wasn't
Okay,
in
maybe
there.
I'm confusing things, huh?
Yeah,
I'm
Did,
too-
did,
I
didn't she
tell
have a
you, I'm-
line? Didn't Cynthia have a line, though?
I didn't see her name.
Oh.
I know
Perhaps
Larry Sharp, and
Larry
then
Sharp.
the Republican.
Malinara, I voted for him. He
Yeah.
lost.
I was not a fan of Cuomo either, and I officially did not vote for him either. While I knew the other candidate had no chance of winning, and I knew Cuomo had this in the bag,
Right.
I just could not give my vote to Cuomo, so I voted for Larry Sharp.
That's. I mean, that's okay because I think one of the things that people need to take into consideration when they're voting in states where there's a secure, unbeatable Democratic majority is whether or not you want to try to support the dream of a vibrant third party by casting a vote
Yeah.
for their candidate when it's really not going to determine that change the likely outcome.
But it's one less vote for the opposite team. Wanda London said she voted red, black, and green.
Yeah. So that shout to Lauren Razor, former Mount Vernon,
Corporation Counsel.
Corporation Counsel, and I think she actually worked in the AG's office as well. Joanna May, Wilson Torero,
Former city councilman from City of Yonkers. What's up?
Sean Patterson Howard.
Hey, oh, God, I got to go see Sean.
Hey, Sean, how are you this evening?
Oh, my God. Sorry, Sean.
Welcome everybody tuned in. So some of the other races that we had, so Nader Sage beat the Republican candidate Joe Pinion, who was recently on the show, overwhelmingly.
Big time.
Yeah, but I mean that was to be expected. It was a Democratic area, and while I'm no disrespect to Nader, and I'm just being honest, keeping it real, I did think that Joe was the better candidate. I knew that he would have a hard time because of the R by his name specifically. But if you take party affiliations out of it, just from the answers from talking to both of them, my assessment was, in my opinion, and I didn't have a vote in that. I didn't vote in that district, but I thought that Joe was the better candidate. But I knew that it was, and I didn't want to say when he was here, I doubted that he had a chance in hell to win.
Yeah, I know, but you know you still support the person that you feel is the best candidate, and I hope he doesn't disappear.
Yes, I hope that he. I know a lot of people. Now, a lot of people said this to me, and I actually said it to him offline. A lot of people, when we said it to him on the air, a lot of people feel like if he switched to the Democratic Party, he would be elected. He could win an election, and he was loyal to what he is. But that has not been. I mean,
I
that's
disagree
the case,
with that.
That's the case of, we've had several people that have been that have switched, that are Republicans that have switched to the Democratic Party just to win the election. So,
But the Republicans have been basically wiped out. So it's time for new insurgents of Republicans, and hopefully these will be moderate Republicans, different Republicans. I mean, they've got to change in order to. We got to have a two-party system.
I totally agree, and he speaks a little bit more.
And we got to
like
keep
you
some
said.
good ones in the Republican Party, you know?
Well, I think I do agree it was good to have a seat at the table, that we know what's going on. But I think a lot of, because of what was going on in the national level, was just too big of a, there's just, people were Republican out because of this, the president, the lack of the Republican Senate to hold his feet to the fire in many cases. And a lot of people just did not want to vote for a Republican in this election cycle. And
No, that's good. That's good though. That's good. Hopefully, we recycle
but
the party now.
well, it needs to be, and I hope that your hope is well founded and not lost on that. I hope that it is what you say. But time will tell.
One of the things that has to change is the Republican Party leadership up on the state level. The chairman of the Republican Party in Mr. Cox, Ed Cox, who happens to be the son-in-law of Richard Nixon, by the way, in case anybody didn't know. Yes, and he's been sitting there for a couple of years, and
Richard Nixon, he passed. He's not still with us. Right
yeah,
now.
he passed.
He's rolling over his grave. He's like, yo, will y'all keep my name out? Every day his name is in the press. He's like, damn, Trump, will you keep my name out the press? Like, every day, every reporter is talking about the situation being so bad that it's actually worse than the Nixon situation, with the things that Trump has done, according to several political commentators on CNN and MSNBC and some other channels. Of course, not Fox, but
I mean, Ed Cox lost every single one of his races except for in Staten Island. He got a couple of assembly seats and Senate seats that he kept, but everything else he lost.
So who else won? We had okay, so our state senates. Jamal Bailey kept his seat. Tubalo kept his seat. County legislators weren't up this year. Who else was? What other? We have Tasha going to call in. Tasha Young from the Westchester Black Political Conference. She's going to call in a little later and discuss more of the local elections on the national level. What can we say about Florida? Why is it every election we're always talking about Florida after the election?
Is that the one that used to have the hanging chats?
That's the same one with the Al Gore, George Bush election, yes. We didn't know that wasn't decided till like days later or a week. I don't know how many days later, but yeah, that was the same area, the same state. They're talking about recounts in the governor race and in the Senate race. It's crazy down there. But the voter suppression. I was down in Georgia, and I keep saying this. Yo, what's up, Uncle Frank? Uncle Frank's tuned in. The voter
Uncle Frank, what up?
Like, we up here, you kind of don't see it as blatant and stuff like that. And if you're from the Northeast, you'd be like, what's this voter suppression thing? Mm-hmm. Go down south. Just my 2 weeks in Georgia, you could see it was real, capital real. Like, it was real down there for real.
Are they doing a recount there?
Well, there's still Stacey Abrams, who's are they doing a recount? Yeah, she's fighting for a recount. She's fighting for all of the uncounted ballots to still be counted. And Brian Kemp. So in a gangster move. So Brian Kemp, who was the Secretary of State, who was over the Board of Elections. Hey, Caitlin. Caitlin said, hey, guys. Who's over the Board of Elections, stepped down from Secretary of State. But before he did, his office issued a letter announcing him as the winner of the governor race. And then he stepped down. Mm-hmm. Like that was just like, okay. You know what I'm saying? So it's like.
So he's not overseeing the recount then?
No, he actually officially stepped down. But
Good.
not before his office declaring him the winner of of the race first, though.
Or
So-
before his office taking decisive action that eliminated sizable numbers of voters from the
Absolutely.
electorate.
Absolutely.
In that sense.
And Tracy said yes, she believed they are recounting in Georgia. She
Okay.
tuned in. So yeah, then we have Georgia. Then we had Dr. Filani. One thing she always says when I go to when she tells people to run, and she's been on our show a few times. She's been here in Westchester a few times. She always says the importance of running, and even the power that you can galvanize even in a loss. And we saw that in Texas with Beto O'Rourke. And even though he lost,
that's a shame.
it galvanized many of the other Texas races in that state.
That's right. Senate
And-
races,
and-
assembly
and-
races,
yes,
they won,
and,
yes.
And they won. And his presence was such a big, like, usually in that area, the person who signs up for the Democrat it's just a formality. You know they're gonna lose. You know what I'm saying? But just be like, you kind of feel bad because you know they got no chance of winning. Like, he came that close to winning in an area that should not have been even close. Shouldn't even been a discussion. And they're now talking about, you know, his power, the power of galvanizing the people and possible
Run for president.
For president. I mean, you know, I don't know if that's a good look or not, but I mean, it elevated him to that conversation because of the national attention of how he galvanized the voters. Shout to your grandson Mason, because I can hear him playing his video game in the other room.
Shouting to us.
Yeah. So, shout to Justin Brash, B-R-A-S-C-H.
Brash, you said it right.
Okay. I spell it because sometimes I don't pronounce them right. I'm not good with names if I have never heard them pronounced before. So I always apologize. But shout out to Justin. Justin's been tuned in a lot, been checking out the website and everything. Oh, so before we go to the election, so the paper is done and will be out Tuesday. The special election, special 2018 midterm election edition of Black Westchester. And yes, I pushed it back so we could cover all these issues in this issue. And the December issue will be out on time. So I thank you for everybody. We got Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. on the check-in, and I believe he may be gracing us with his presence a little later. We're coming to the vigil on the 19th of the 7-year anniversary of his father being executed, summary execution of his father by the White Plains Police Department. But he will talk about that. He will talk about the vigil. And even before he gets here, I say to all the people before politics listeners, many of you, when you get in those situations, he is one of the first people you call. Any situations with police brutality, anything like that, y'all call him to speak. As far as police reform and police community relations, when he puts out the call that he's having a vigil for his father, all those people need to come out and support him the way he supports all of y'all.
That's right.
And we need to keep the name alive, you know, and let the, all those know that we haven't forgotten, and the fight for justice is not over. And you didn't get away with it. It's not over. We're going to continue to fight. Black Westchester will continue to stand alongside of Kenneth Chamberlain, and we'll continue to do what we can do to help keep the name alive and to keep shedding light on the situation. He'll get much more into that when he comes. Tasha Honey D, Tasha Young is checked in, and Otis J. Gray is checked in. I would you might have to close the door. Tasha's gonna call in and give us a rundown of the election. When you get a chance, Tasha, call 718-705-4959. 718-705-4959. Forgot what I was talking about at that moment. So, yeah, but we're going to support Kenneth Chamberlain. I wanted to make sure we do that. And so, what elections did y'all pay attention to? What did you get from this election? What particular victories or losses, impacted y'all the most, or that y'all were paying attention to? Bob and Lorraine.
So, what did you think?
I'm in Putnam County, so there was 2 races that I was concerned about, and that was the Assembly seat with Kevin Byrne, who's a Republican, And
Did he win?
yes, he did.
Okay.
And Hartman, who was running for Senate in the Democratic line, is one of the guys that won as well.
Shout to Hartman. Hartman took it out of advertised with Black West.
Yes. And I know Andrea was campaigning hard for him, and the Democratic Party.
So that was a Republican seat that got flipped.
That got flipped,
That
yes.
was one of the Republican seats that got flipped. And I think there was one possibly in Brooklyn.
He beat Marcus Malinaro.
Wow. And I think there was a couple in Suffolk and Nassau counties, too, that Democratic seats that flipped. I mean, Republican seats that flipped. The girl that Damon and black law enforcement endorsed, I can't remember her name either right now. She won. I think she was a Latina.
Wasn't her name Martinez?
It may have been. I will look that up, so I don't want to misspeak. But I know she won, and a couple other seats. Bob,
Cool.
what was you paying attention to? What impact? What do you get from this election?
I breathed a sigh of relief in the early hours of, I guess, Wednesday morning, when it became clear that the Democratic Party, National Party, had managed to retake the House.
Yeah.
Why is that important? Let's break that down. Why was that important?
Because the only possible check on the president's imperial overreach, as he, continues to attack the foundations of our democracy, from the newspapers to, the independent law enforcement agencies, just to name a few. It's very clear, and especially the president's indications that he is, if he could have his druthers, he would bring the Mueller investigation to a close. So I feel pretty confident now that it's going to be far more difficult for the president to make good on his intention to bring the Mueller investigation to a close, because, of course, now that the House of Representatives is under control of of the Democratic Party, one should expect that they will vigorously contest any kind of unconstitutional designs on the president's part.
Shout to Auntie Maxine.
Yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, my hope is, look, and I'm going to repeat a point that I've made, and it's been said by others. Let us not be too glib about the thought of impeaching the president. Although I do think that there's very strong prima facie evidence the president has engaged in some sort of wrongdoing, we have to be honest with the deeply polarized society in which we now live, and a fairly even kind of electoral split between the two parties. You can certainly be sure that should the president be impeached, it will be extremely painful and will only further ratchet up tension that now has many people raising questions about whether or not the United States could one day find itself embroiled in some sort of civil war. But
that is we talked about that offline. We talking about the possibility, or at least moving in the direction, potentially, of a civil war, and it won't be like the North against the South this time. It'll be like almost a racial war, like two. You know what I'm saying? And it that does concern me. Like, we're moving in that direction if these things are not checked and like the checks and balances, if he's allowed to continue, if he had been allowed to continue to move in the way he was moving and galvanizing the white supremacists and those who have no love for black or brown people, we were moving because people always say, like, things like slavery, y'all should have just got over it. And the things that have happened to black and brown people, y'all should just get over it. You know what? You can't just get over it, and you can't erase it from this history. Like, it's like the country's original sin. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't keep your foot on a group of people's neck and expect them not to respond. After a certain point, people get tired of being, when people get sick and tired of being sick and tired, they fight back. You know what I'm saying? And that's when we've had some changes in this country, from people fighting back from being oppressed, or not being able to vote, or not being able to sit on the back of the bus, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, whatever from people fighting back, and we're getting to that point. And the more Trump galvanizes his base, he's actually galvanizing the other side too. I mean, for every action there's a reaction, and I'm glad again that the House was. I hope the House will be able to do some of the things that they promised to do, and they will actually live up to their potential of what can be done as far as the checks and balances are concerned.
Can I ask? Let me ask you a question. It's a little sad.
Caller, please hold.
If something happened to Ginsburg, he won't have the power to put in he would, but the Congress can stop him.
Well, he's the Senate. The Senate, he still has, from what they said, the Senate is the one. He still
Who
has
votes on it?
I mean, they have the power of he was still
to advise and consent.
to advise and consent, so he could still get that through.
Yeah, it would still be the president's nomination.
It would be his nomination, but the Congress wouldn't have the power to.
The Congress is still, the Senate is still Republican, and that side of the Senate is the advise and consent side.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So.
Well, you need to put her in a plastic bubble.
This is the People Before Politics radio show. Caller, please state your name and your purpose for calling.
Hi, everybody. It's Tasha.
Hey, Tasha.
Tasha.
What's up, Queen?
What's up?
Hey, fam. Hi, Queen. How you guys doing?
Beautiful, beautiful.
All right, Princess, how are you?
I'm well. My purpose of calling is just to say hi to family on the radio and do what y'all do and join in with you.
Well, one of the things we would like you to talk about, I saw that. One of the things the stream is still going. One of the things we would like you to talk about, because you're very active in local politics, is the results and what does it mean to the people of Westchester, and people of color?
My goodness. Yeah. So, first of all, I'm glad that, we're able, I feel strange that we're not in election season anymore, but I also am trying to catch up on some rest. The work is
rest.
not finished. I'm sorry?
A well-deserved rest.
Tasha, you really did your thing out there.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much. There's an army of volunteers and organizers that I consider myself a part of. And, for me as a woman of color, I kept a lot of my energy local.
Wait, hold on. Hold on.
Yeah.
Wait, one quick. Any parting words? I know you weren't able to stay. I want to give you any parting
No,
words.
I got my grandson with me, and I got a situation, so I have to leave right now. I just want to say congratulations to everyone that won. And Tasha, you did an amazing job. Amazing job.
Thank
I love you, and I admire you so much.
I love you so much.
Tasha,
Likewise.
I'm not going to
Can I
make
just say
similar
something
professions on
Can I-
air.
Go ahead, Tasha.
Oh, wait. Yes, okay, that would be wise in the age we live in. But for Lorraine, I just want to say I love you too, and I'm inspired by you. And you having your grandson there is something that I also want to just highlight. It's so important for the little ones to see us in these professional roles of leadership. It encourages them. So you're like a lady after my own heart. I drag mine around with me every chance I get, so they could aspire to be leaders like we are. So enjoy your grandson.
See him on the
Thank
screen.
you.
Are you watching this? Are you watching the feed on Facebook?
I am.
You see him on the screen. He's on the screen now.
He's eating a Snickers.
No, it's like I have a delay, so
Oh, okay. Well,
Lorraine
you'll see-
just put on her coat.
You'll see. Yeah. You'll see it in a minute. You'll see. Yeah, there is a delay.
I
on the
took him
Facebook
to
post.
vote with me. And he got his I voted sticker, and then in the afternoon he took his mom to vote, and he taught her what I taught him. And
Oh my goodness!
we
See?
teach him early. All right, God bless
Yeah,
you all.
exactly. God bless you. I see him now. Okay, God bless you guys.
All right, Lorraine, we'll
Bye,
see you later.
Mason. Bye.
Bye-bye, Mason. Have a good night, man.
Oh, so sweet.
So a couple of quick shout outs before you go. Before you go on, Judge Mount Vernon, City Court Judge Adrian Armstrong, Mark Stuckey, of course, Black by Popular Demand, Damon K. Jones is checking out the show.
DK.
former Mount Vernon controller Maureen Walker is checking out the show.
Good evening, Miss Walker.
Luna McKee, she said, I hope so too. Dawn C. Wright, said good evening. Good evening, AJ. And there was also one or two other people that I saw. Good friend of mine, Kwame.
Dawn, how are you, Dawn? It's Bob Baskerville.
Okay.
No, I'm
Kwame Beer. He has a show, the Equilibrium radio show on. It's on City College Station at WHCR, I believe. So shout out to him. He does a great show. And shout out to everybody else who's tuned in. Go ahead, Tasha. Oh, Priscilla Ichi.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Queen, Priscilla. Priscilla Ichi.
Hi, Priscilla. Hi, Damon. So locally in Westchester, we made history on several fronts. And first of all, we have a Democratic Senate majority for the first time in like a decade. Mm-hmm. And that was made possible by like Peter Harkam's district flipping it from red to blue, and also some other races upstate. I think the candidate was James Skoufis, Jen Metzger, and there's another one that his name is escaping me right now. And then a few on the island, like the Senator-elect Martinez. So we picked up 8 seats.
8, yeah, I knew there was a few. Yeah, we only needed 1.
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't lose any, did we? We picked up 8. We didn't lose any.
Oh God, I think not.
Were worried about
I think
protecting.
not.
I think the one they were worried about protecting, they protected.
Yeah, I know John Brooks was like a little nervous, so he won a re-election. But we also, so this is what matters to Westchester and to me personally. We also, replaced 6 IDC senators, right?
Absolutely.
So the head of the IDC that was voting with Republicans was replaced by local phenom Alessandra Biaggi, and friend to the show.
The Klein
so
Slayer.
The Klein Slayer. I love it. The Klein Slayer. So she holds it. I'm sorry.
And no, and to quote her, she cut the head off the IDC snake. That was
there you go.
Those are her words in her victory.
There you go. So that was really personal to me. I got into a lot of this quote unquote activism, and I use that very loosely because when I think of activism, I think of like real giants. But I got into this little exercise that we're in right now by really protesting and informing the electorate about Senator Klein, because he, to me, was responsible for leading a usurpation of power. Thank you, Professor. A usurpation of power from Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who is my senator. She's my senator when I live in the town of Greenburgh, and then when I moved to New Rochelle, she was still my senator. So it's like, I really felt personal about what he was doing by her not having the power she was elected to have. So Alessandra was a historic victory, but then flipping the Senate to Democratic, Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins is now the first female leader of the New York State Senate majority, and the first black female because she happens to be a black woman, and the first from Westchester in like 100 years.
Well,
so that is
also, and I don't want to be misquoted, but the Times or one of those publications said that she's actually the first female leader of a state legislative conference, and I don't know if that part is true.
Yes.
Like in the country, like that's why there was. So
yes.
I have to look for that. I have to look that up. But they were calling her the first female leader of a legislative conference, and they have to be on the state level, not on the state level.
Right. That seems quite likely.
Yeah, and throughout the country.
Yeah.
So that's another big historical first.
Right.
Absolutely. So she in the same vein as Kathy Davidson, it's like they keep making first as women, and because they're African American, it's like a twofer. So it's like they're the first woman and then the first African American woman. Right. So it's like they do it simultaneously. And then we elected the first black attorney general
Yes.
in the state of New York,
Yes.
who also happens to be an African American woman. So it's
And
she's the
first elected woman too, because Barbara
First elected.
Barbara Underwood was appointed
Statewide, the first
elected
statewide
New York
female.
State Attorney General, elected woman. 'Cause
Exactly.
Barbara Underwood was
Exactly.
appointed after Snyderman. She wasn't elected.
I see.
So Tish is the first elected woman. Period. And the
She's
New York State Attorney General.
Okay.
That's right. That's right. And the first black elected woman to a state position, because you got to remember Kathy Hochul
right, for a
is
statewide position. Yes.
right, because Kathy Hochul is elected lieutenant governor, so she's the first elected woman.
Real quick, real quick, Tasha. So people see on the screen, black by popular demand in the place to be. The one and only Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. is here in his African American College Allegiance T-shirt. Hoodie. So shout out to Chris Latt. Shout out to Chris Latt for the AAC.
He rocking for all the graduate students.
Oh, let me do my applause for you, Kenneth. Yes.
So
Kenneth
Dame is not here, but his brother, his twin, is here. You know how many people mix them up, and you can see the difference between them. But people have asked me when they see Damon sometimes, "Oh, your partner, that's the one whose father got killed." No, that's Kenneth Chamberlain. So yeah, people have actually mixed them two up, and people say they look like twins, but they both think they do not. So, but they are brothers.
That's them dudes who got knocked out.
Yeah, they brothers from another mother, because they go way back. You know what I'm saying? Back in the high school days and maybe beyond that. And also Mayo too. Mayo grew up. Does Mayo also grow up with y'all? Yeah, the three of them. Yeah.
Greenberg.
Greenberg. Greenberg got some history. Greenberg got some stuff going on.
Greenberg White Plains connection.
Yes. So go ahead, Tasha.
Hi, Kenneth. Hi, Ken.
How are you?
God bless you, brother. Good. So all of that is historical, and for me as a woman of color and a black woman, it's very important for me to always, represent my community and really engage our community more in this process. Because I'll be honest, on a lot of these canvassing endeavors, there weren't a lot of us doing it. So I'm hoping that this is a springboard. Time in history for us to be knocking doors on our neighbors' doors,
so,
and
Tasha,
really engage. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wanted to interject for a moment and just ask you to offer some clarification. So you mean when you were going out to canvass in majority black neighborhoods, there were a few black people?
No, I wish I was going in majority black neighborhoods. What happens in this whole electioneering is they go by voter participation. So they look at people, of course, who voted in 2016 because we're on the 2-year, election cycle. And, there was a down surge in participation in 2016 from 2012, right? So less people voted in 2016 than 2012. And then 2017 was even less than that. So numbers were down, so they go by people's voting patterns. So I happen to vote in midterm elections. But if you're a person that doesn't vote in midterm elections, you don't get canvassed.
I see. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So they start with identifying voters, right? And again, it's based on voter participation. And then after that identification, they see, if you're a pro or con. If you're a con, they put you in one basket. If you're a maybe, they're going to concentrate on convincing you, right, with frequency of contact. And if you're a yes, they're going to keep contacting you until it's like getting out the vote. So I say that to say that because of voting patterns, the way the campaigns cut turf is not in our neighborhoods. So, it would be an off chance that I run into, yes.
Because on the whole, African Americans are voting at lower numbers in the midterm elections here in New York.
Exactly. Exactly. And the off years. So 2017, there was a very low voter turnout in our community.
When you gave me the number to do the phone banking for the primary, and I was doing it for Jemani, most of the numbers I were calling was like in upward Albany area. It wasn't our area.
Exactly.
I had a couple of numbers like Brooklyn and some places, but most of the places I was calling was upstate, like upstate. You know what I'm saying? Albany, all that area up there. Nothing close to us. It was nothing Westchester.
Yep.
I had a few Suffolk County, and I had a couple of Brooklyn, but most of mine were upstate. Like in the few hours that I did it.
So,
I just wanted to say. I wanted to say. So when Kenny walked in the door, so D. Wilson, hey, Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. looking great. Damon, Kenny. Jennifer Aileen said, hey, Kenny. Then Damon put up the 3 power fists. And then Atif Khalil, shout out to Atif. He said, cheers. And he said, is that Tasha? Tasha rocks. Yes, that is Tasha Atif. Shout out to Elias Goodsight and the Future Society also tuned in. Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, Brother Goodsight. So, Tasha, I know that over the past year you've been especially interested, as many of us, in trying to push the electorate leftward so that we can kind of prod our politicians, our elected representatives, to embrace more progressive policies. What do you think the impact of focusing on repeat voters is likely to have on the kind of policies that I know that you favor?
Oh, that's such a complex and great question. I think that the strategy that
you put a smile on Dr. Bob's face. Yeah, you put a smile on Dr. Bob's face. What's your response?
He always makes me think, right? Okay, so I think that strategy is, okay, so let me say this first. Yes, the progressive agenda is the agenda that I think can win elections, but the strategy that the campaigns use, I think, is a missed opportunity for engaging people that really care about those issues, but are not informed. And are not informed about who's running. And I'll give you an example. We did a Get Out the Vote rally locally, and there were first-time canvassers that came that didn't know the issues the candidates were really representing. And that's a problem. That's a problem because we had this rally like 2 days before the election. And we're not reaching people. We're not reaching people of color. We're not reaching people in urban areas. Sometimes we're not going into buildings as much. And I shouldn't say we, because I don't run campaigns. But so I'll say the campaigns and the local county committees and, the people that do this kind of stuff on a model. I think the model needs to be really updated. And one of the things I would like to do through Westchester Black Political Conference is, talk to our neighbors and communities that never get their doors knocked, and let them know, listen, there's an opportunity to get involved in the future of your area, your community, your city, your town, your village, your state, and your country. Because once you talk to people and they're like, oh, I didn't know that. That's how we got Jeff Klein out. People didn't know he was voting with Republicans. Right, and, that campaign went into Throgs Neck and Kingsbridge and, all these areas in the Bronx where people, they just didn't know. So now when they knew, you see what happened.
So I want to take this opportunity. I want to talk about the other thing you mentioned it already, the Westchester Black Political Conference, which and Kenny can speak on it too. The importance of putting together a grassroots organization like that, especially here for African Americans in Westchester. The importance of that, and why y'all started that, and what it is. It's an organization, and I'm part of a few organizations, and what I see is that a lot of times they develop out of need. And for me, I didn't feel very well engaged in the political process, and I want to be responsible for who is representing me. I'm venturing to not even call our elected leaders anymore, because I really feel like the people have the opportunity to lead, right, and partner with our elected officials. And that's what I want to do as an individual, and I want to empower more people to get involved with the process of elections and policy. And we don't even want to get into policy because I'm a total nerd and I will geek out on the phone. But, we, the people, have the power
to shape our government. And we're seeing it happen, but we're not seeing it happen in our own communities. So for me, that is that's the current, it's not the only reason for the Westchester Black Political Conference, but for me, is to really engage our community more in this process. We are so blindly faithful, and not all the time, right, Dr. Bob? But we're so blindly faithful to the Democratic Party, but we are not getting our just desserts for our faith and our loyalty. So I would like to be a part of changing that in Westchester.
And before Kenny speak, so Damon added, to comment on what Tasha said. She said the model's working fine. It's meant for a certain group of voters, not us. And he said the Black Political Conference is changing the old model and forming the masses that don't get the information. That was Damon's.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. Exactly.
I want Kenneth to answer about.
Well, I think that, just to kind of piggyback on what Tasha said is, for me, it's very simple. We have individuals who are in office who do not have the best interest at heart of the communities that they serve.
Absolutely.
Bottom line, there's no other way to put it. So what we need to do now is we need to show them the power of the vote. And and Tasha and I have talked about this extensively, that how do we make our organization that strong? We have to let them know that we have the power of the vote, and that we can sway individuals, and we can put those report cards up and show what elected officials are doing what, who kept their promises, who didn't. And when we do that, hopefully it'll wake people up, because like she said, people, they move blindly. I've heard individuals say, "Oh, I voted, but I just voted straight across the board for every Democrat."
Row A all the way.
All the way across the board. To me, that makes that's absurd.
It's funny. I'm not a Democrat, so I voted. I purposely tried my best not to vote the Democratic line. All the candidates I won had the independent line and other parties, and I voted those parties. But I voted for the people, but I just wouldn't give them the Democratic vote. I know, Bob, you're involved in the political conference too, right? You want to speak about that?
Yes. So over this weekend, while I was going to see my son yesterday, I happened to tune into NPR and listen to a lecture by Michael Porter, who's a well-known economist, and Catherine Gale, who is also a very savvy commentator on the condition of America's political system. And they issued a report that I'd urge everyone to read. And the report is entitled "Why Competition in the Politics Industry is Failing in America." And essentially the point that they make is that the two-party system is a duopoly that has a lock on a number of key inputs. And two of these inputs, which I think, and I'm sure Kenneth and Tasha and even Damon would agree, that Black Westchester Political Conference is looking to break, is the lock, firstly, that the party has on ideas. Too often, one of the reasons that the policies that are being instituted by the Democratic Party are failing us is because those are ideas that are hackneyed, they're old, and they really do not reflect the experience and the input of African-American voters and those who are on the periphery of the American society, and therefore aren't the primary focus of our elected Democratic officials. And the second key piece of data that they have a lock on, and I think we're recognizing needs to be undone, is the lock on voter data. The development of the kind of voter data turnout models that Tasha has in mind really depends on a broadening of access to information about our voters, where they live, their voting patterns, their age, all kind of critical demographic data that grassroots activists really do not have access to. And I could tell you my experience when we were in the Thomas campaign. I had an opportunity to see just how much the Democratic Party officialdom is able to maintain control, because the cost of this data is exorbitant and is really beyond the reach of any person who wants to start a grassroots campaign. To get the main suppliers, I think Van is one of the big suppliers for the Democratic Party, and it's expensive. It's going to cost you $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 just to get a single run. So what I'm hoping to see is, with the growing access of computer applications, that we're going to be able to do a lot of this kind of analysis ourselves so that we will be able to put together alternative voter turnout models that can make the mobilization of our communities a central focus. And I mention it because even though the election is over, if we're going to be able to successfully do that, we all agree that means that we got to do this now.
Absolutely.
We had a day to rest. We didn't even have a day. The president reminded us what a fight we're in.
Yeah, Jeff Sessions the night.
Yes. But I hope, and I think that's something that we've been kind of inching toward, even though because it's been such a hectic political season, we really haven't had the time that we really want to think about the ideas. But I know that now that we'll have a little bit of rest, we're all planning on coming back and trying to get that together.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's the powerful thing of Patrick said, good for you, Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. The powerful thing, like, you know, the different entities that it takes for Black Westchester to do what it's doing, you know, and informing the people, the Westchester Black Political Conference, and doing, you know, on that level, you know, just you have to engage people on from different fronts. You know what I'm saying? You can't. There's not one way to reach everybody, and I'm proud to be affiliated with all of y'all. You know what I'm saying? In this movement, I guess that we're all in. So
we're a movement.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm looking at you guys. You guys look so good. I miss you so much, and I'm so glad to be a part of this with you guys.
Well, Dr. Bob said that you do not put enough FaceTime on the radio show. You need to be making some more appearances.
Yes.
That is what he said. That's what he said on the way here when I told him you were calling in. He was like, well, she needs to be here with the election just happening and everything.
Tasha's got a lot of insight, so.
Okay. I'll be there.
Okay. So
whatever Dr. Bob says.
Anything that I haven't asked you that you want to say about the election, about the the results, what the results mean, and I know you wrote a piece for the current issue of Black Westchester, basically. And basically, I can't remember the title. Basically, it says the Democrats win. Can we get some criminal justice reform now? Basically, that's what you were. That was the theme of it.
I mean, that's basically like what I say all the time out my mouth. You know, it's like, when are we going to get some return on our loyalty in the Black community? You know, when are our elected officials? One of the reasons I supported Tish James, and I'm so glad she's AG right now, is because, you know, she has spoken on numerous occasions about an independent oversight into police involved deaths and serious, and then she added serious injury. And, you know, like, that's the kind of language that I really need to hear, because, you know, Black people will always align ourselves with someone who is suffering, you know, and it's not always returned. It's not always returned. We support other communities, and then we're out here on some occasions by ourselves, and when we're experiencing suffering at the hands of the police. Thank God, you know, Kenneth has, support from people in other communities that are not Black, but that's not always the norm. And when you look at issues on candidates' websites, and when I look and I don't see criminal justice reform and they're Democrats, I'm kind of scratching my head like, you know, why not? Why not? Everybody's doing every other kind of issue that is quote unquote progressive, and even some of the progressive groups that I happen to be a member of. But criminal justice might be put on the website or on the page, but once you look for people to do the work, everybody's doing something else. They're doing environment, which is essentially important. I'm not minimizing any other issue, but I want to see more criminal justice reform so people are not. So people are treated like human beings and not animals because of the color of their skin. So, you know, when I was invited a lot to canvass, you know, I was hesitant because I don't know the candidates that they were asking me to support. And the last thing I would want to do is knock on doors. And first of all, I don't like canvassing. I get a little scared because I'm scared of dogs. But then there's also the issue of some of these neighborhoods I used to canvass in areas of Westchester, Yorktown Heights, or Scarsdale. I don't know if someone's going to see me as a threat and hurt me. And that's real. You know, so I was getting invites into areas that I didn't know, for candidates that I didn't know, and I didn't go. Number one, am I going to be safe in those neighborhoods as a black woman walking by herself, knocking on people's doors? I had one of my girlfriends who went and said, Tasha, I would never ask you to go to some of the turf they sent me to because I was afraid. I was yelled at just because I was a Democrat.
That's a very big concern with the atmosphere that the current president is creating.
Invoking.
You know, invoking.
Yeah.
That's a good word, yes.
So I don't know. So I don't know the neighborhoods, and number two, I don't know the issues. So I could very well be knocking doors for someone that might vote against my best interest when they get to the state legislature, and I wasn't ready to take that risk.
That's good. Yo, Gwen Samuel said those running for public office think so little of black voters' ability to give that they give out stuff that says vote row A or vote row B, at least in Connecticut, without listing who is running. They think we just blindly follow folks. In many cases we do, but still do better. Take the time to actually get us to know the voter. They take little time to get to know the voter. Sorry. And she also says she agreed it's time to ensure that we as people not only are engaged citizens in voting, but an informed voter knowing who is running. And if they are current lawmakers rerunning for public office, what is their voting record on issues that matter to you, your family, your children, your community? Hashtag real talk. Shout out to John Tomlin. I think he was doing the press for Andrew Stewart Cousins during the primary. Shout out to Marvin Church. There was a couple other names I just saw for the first time. Solomon B. Peterson, Gwen Samuel just mentioned her, Kemi Pogue, and John Brick Health Bricks. I guess that's his Facebook name.
I don't want to run into
Joey. I'm sorry, Joey. I said Joey Brickhouse. Joey Brick. I said
Yeah.
Ken, like, yo, Bob, be easy, man. Don't get shook.
That's my guy right
That's
there.
your guy. All right, I feel better now. I'm like, they checking up on me.
So, talking about criminal justice reform, and I say this all the time. I'm going to continue to say this, and it'll lead into our upcoming conversation that we're going to have. We're coming up on the anniversary. Coming up on the anniversary of the death of Kendall Chamberlain, his Kenny's father, and I have to say, I hope they never have to find out, but because of the way his father was killed by the White Plains Police Department, it would be very understandable if he was on some real F the people, F everybody, F the police kind of attitude, but he works harder, and he helped found a group called the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform, and works and almost around the county, almost every police community relation forum that I've been through in Yonkers and Greenberg and several other cities. Kenneth is usually on the panel or there, and he works so hard for better police community relations, and he has all right to be like F the police, to be honest, because I'm gonna be like a lot of people in that situation would be in another level on they wouldn't be as active and reforming the community and informing and reform, and again, that's another organization that is a very good grassroots organization, Westchester Coalition for Police Reform, that he's very much involved. And I just want to take my hat off, and I hope to never have to find out what that situation is like, but I would like to think that I would be able to stand up like he does. But I can understand if, I might be on another whole level if that happened to me, to be honest. And so my hat is off to him. And I know we're going to get into criminal justice reform, and before we go there, I wanted to talk about, we talk about, a lot of people say they're not into politics. But politics plays a role in everything that you do, and it affects you everywhere. How is politics important as far as criminal justice reform and better police, community relations, and all that good stuff?
Well, let me just put my other hat on first. You know, I've been wanting to say this since we came in here.
Okay.
Welcome to the People Before Politics radio show. My name is Damon K. Jones. But, look, seriously, I mean, first I just want to say that, you know, it's always great to be on this show, to be able to speak to people and to really just lay it all out on the line, because this is one show where, you know, we tell it exactly like it is. You know,
Right.
There's nothing sugar-coated here.
Right.
You know, the same way that I would hold an elected official accountable, I would expect you guys to hold me accountable too if I came on this show and I was doing something or saying something that was contrary to what I said before.
Right.
If I was being a hypocrite,
Right.
point blank.
Right.
Now, when we're talking about politics, first off, the killing of my father was just, there's nothing but politics all around that, okay? Because we have to understand, I mean, we get technical, you can start talking about, you know, the history of law enforcement, the history of the police, what does protect and serve really mean? Is it protect the people? Is it protect the property?
Right.
You
right,
know,
right.
So through this whole time when my father was killed, the city is more concerned about how much money they stand to lose versus the fact that they took a life needlessly. You see, this November 19th will mark 7 years since my father was killed. And in these 7 years, I learned a lot about a city that I grew up in that I didn't know before. City of White Plains. I learned a lot about the leadership in the city of White Plains, the elected leadership. I learned so much about our community and faith-based leadership that it's very, very sad. So because we're coming up on the 7-year mark of his killing, this is why I spoke to you and said, you know, I will probably be coming on the show, because I want to finally kind of lay some things out here. Because when I have conversations with people, you hear certain things and they say, oh, well, I thought this, I thought that. I'm saying, that's not true.
Right.
Who told you that?
Right.
You know, so I'm here to really talk about a number of different things right now. One of the first things that I want to talk about is the fact that we have the vigil coming up.
Mm-hmm.
That is November 19th. It will start at 7 p.m. in front of the White Plains Police Department at 77 South Lexington Avenue.
Monday the 19th.
Yes. We
Okay.
will have people out there. There'll be various speakers
Mm-hmm.
speaking to different issues and why it's so important that we come together, you know, as a community, all nationalities, all faiths, because this is the only way that we're really going to tackle the issue of police misconduct, brutality, and criminality, or as we say now, extrajudicial killings and summary executions. It's very important. When we look at my support base, 85% of my support base is white. Out of the black people that support me, you would say 85, 90% are women, not men. I often say now that I am a hero to some, troublemaker to others. It all depends on which side of the fence you're standing on. I was having a conversation with a close friend of mine in confidence, and she said to me that she was speaking about me to a pastor. And the pastor said, I need to let it go. This whole situation. So I'm saying to myself, let what go? What do I need to let go? Do I need to let go of the fact that my father was murdered in the city of White Plains? Do I need to let go of the fact that I'm out here on the front line fighting this battle and trying to get people to understand the importance of this, that is bigger than Kenneth Chamberlain Sr.? What is it that I need to let go? And they made mention or made a statement that I'm angry. And I am. I have every right to be angry. But I always say that my anger is righteous because never once, and you can attest to this, and so can Dr. Bob, no one has never heard me say anything to promote violence around the killing of my father. I've never, not one time,
You even spoke against the
ever told anybody to go
cops
out there.
when the cops in Brooklyn got ambushed.
Correct.
You spoke against that.
Yes.
Against that attitude.
Yes.
Yes.
I've never once said anything about being violent because I said, no, we need to come together. But this is when you talk about righteous anger, that's what that is. Okay? It's about me looking and trying to be proactive. It's about me saying, all right, this is what happened, but how are we going to deal with it? Yeah, it's easy to say, okay, we can go out here and we can burn down the city. It's easy to say that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole lot harder to try to get people to come together and understand why we need to stick together. I mean, I've said this privately and I'll say it publicly now. Even when we talk about the different communities or the areas in the city of White Plains that's considered low income, from Lexington Avenue to Ferris Avenue to North Kensico to DeKalb, if one person from each apartment building came to a common council meeting, when we are up there addressing the issues, we'd pack it out. It'd be standing room only. People will say to me, oh, you need to run for office. And then my question to them is, are you registered to vote?
Right.
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 And
'cause
then
Are you going to be able to support me?
You
Right,
know?
'cause, I had to say, he made me, I was in church one day, and all of a sudden I got a text. Kenneth Chamberlain, the page, Kenneth Chamberlain for mayor, for White Plains mayor. And then I got another text that says, he just made you administrator. So I talked to a lot of the people, and
Yeah.
again, a lot of them were not registered voters,
So-
and none of them lived in White Plains.
You see,
So it's
so,
like, you know.
so my thing is that, and this is directly to the faith-based leadership right now. Okay, there are individuals from the faith-based community that are on the front lines, that are there, that not just support me in my fight, but support other people in their issues as well. But there are a greater number who do not. Why? And the conversation I had earlier, and I'm going to say it now, is because they are more concerned about those requests for proposals, those RFPs, those grants, than they are for the people in the community. And this is a problem. And this is why we have to change this. Now, the question is where do you do the greater work? Do you do the greater work in office, or do you do the greater work out of office? For me, I'm very vocal. I always say I'm not a political person.
Absolutely.
Okay, I call BS BS. And so you have to know when to not do that. So I'm not so sure if I need to be sitting in an office where I've been elected.
Right,
You
right.
know? Right? But the work needs to be done. So I'm not understanding how someone who calls himself a man of God could even make a statement and say, I'm angry and I need to let it go. I mean, it bothers me, but at the same time, I'm not surprised.
Damon told me when I told him of our conversation, he said those are the same preachers that if they were alive in the days of the Bible, they would have told Paul and the disciples the same thing about them being angry and to get over it. These are the same people that would have said that back then.
Well, see, that's the same conversation I had with people when we would talk about, you talk about Malcolm X, you talk about Dr. Martin Luther King, you know, and I said that, you know, Malcolm said that he lives like a man who's died already. I said, Martin said that he's, you know, he doesn't fear any man or anything because he's been to the mountaintop and his eyes seen the coming of the Lord. I say that means that in order to truly live, there has to be a cause greater than yourself that you're willing to die for. You see, and most of these pastors right now will quote Dr. King.
Mm-hmm.
But if Dr. King were alive today, would you support Dr. King or would you call him a radical? Because remember, he only had 10% of the clergy backing him back then.
Yeah.
He did not have a great number of clergy supporting him.
Right.
You know, so it's the same old song. So my job is to get out here and to try to open the eyes of the people and to affect change. I mean, I've been threatened. I have people call me a troublemaking nigga. I need to get out of White Plains, and you know, I'm not concerned about that though, because I know that I have a job to do. And when I was out there in those streets acting up and being a fool, I wasn't afraid. So why would I be afraid now when I know what I'm doing is righteous, when I know what I'm doing is correct, when I know that. And you know, let's just keep in mind, to quote something that my brother Mike Son said to me one day when he and I were talking. Nonviolence is a learned behavior. That's a learned behavior. I'm never gonna let anybody come up and put their hands on me and just think they're gonna hurt me because I'm out here speaking about injustice that happened to my father, or speaking about an injustice that happened to another family's loved one. See, this is why it's so important that people need to be out here on this front line. This is why it's so important that all these brothers out here, they call themselves tough guys and call themselves gangsters and all of this and all of that. Why you not on the front line fighting this issue? Because it didn't happen to your loved one? Or they'll say, you know, I've been in trouble with the law before, so, you know, I want to be out there, but I don't think I should. I don't really know a black person who hasn't had police contact. I don't really know many. So this is why it's so important that we stand on this front line. Another thing that I want to get out there is I've had plenty of people come to me and say, oh, I heard the city of White Plains tried to settle with you before you went to court and you turned it down. That's a lie. There's no other way to put that. But let me make one thing clear. Stop looking at the money in this situation, because that's not what the important piece is. The reason you go civilly is because when you look at it from a criminal perspective, they have failed us time and time again. Right. So the only way that you can attack the situation is civilly. And then when you go into civil court, now your attorneys have an opportunity to get information out there, to fact find and see what's going on, or find out things that happened in the case that the DA is not going to reveal. So this is why it's so important that we move forward like this. So now my case is currently in appeal. We could get a decision any day now. It is my belief that, you know, my attorneys presented the case well in the appeal, that the low-hanging fruit is the entry, the violation of his constitutional rights, which is supposed to protect him from illegal searches and seizure, and that if we get this decision, not only do we get another day in court, but we have now created case law.
That's why I want you to go with the case law.
That is what is important, because God forbid if another family has to deal with this situation, when you ask about case law or what the precedent is for you making this decision, now you can say Chamberlain versus the city of White Plains, this, and this was said, and this was the decision, okay? But this is what people don't understand. So stop looking at the money, because there's not an amount of money that you could give me that's going to bring my father back.
Right. And I just want to stop you real quick and just tell you.
Knock it off.
We've just been joined by the one and only Damon K. Jones. You there, D? You there?
Yo, what up, Kenny?
What's up,
my brother?
What's going on, man?
What's up, Bob? What's up, AJ?
DK,
what's
up,
good?
man?
What's good?
Nah, I'm just sitting here listening to Kenny. Just keep going, my brother. Keep going.
You know, I mean, you know, this is the stuff that I just try to get people to understand. For 7 years, I've sat back. I've listened to disrespect. I've listened to people disrespect my family. I've listened to people disrespect my father. You're disrespecting a dead man. I've sat in the courtroom, and some of you were in the courtroom with me when they played the audio, and how the police officers on the other side of the courtroom were laughing when they were playing the audio of my father. Okay, when a police officer was on the stand and laughed as he got down and said, "It's been real." So, and then for them to make a decision, and then for a judge to say, "Well, I hope this brings about some closure." No, it will never bring about closure. There is no justice. Okay? When people talk about what does justice look like for a black man, I said justice is a concept. It's a theory. It's an idea. Because we don't know what justice looks like.
I was going to say,
we've never experienced it, so we can't say that it has actually happened.
In my 52 years, I have never seen it.
So I don't know what justice looks like. I can tell you what they say justice is, but, you know, that's theory. Have we seen it practically applied? Did they drag Anthony Corelli inside and say you're being charged with murder and the killing of Kenneth Chamberlain
That was the
Sr.?
White Plains police officer.
Correct.
No, so people that don't know who.
Correct. Anthony Corelli is the individual who shot and killed my father. Okay, so I have been very quiet for the past few months, but I've been working behind the scenes, and I have a lot of things that it's about to take place, that's about to happen. I mean, I can't speak to it right now, but believe me, when I do, People Before Politics will probably be the first to actually release it. You guys have been in my corner from day one. Damon, my brother, you know, we go back. You know, he has been there from day one. You know, when it first happened and I called him, he told me, "I'll be right there." He has never left.
And I just want to say, and also, and Damon, one of the things that Kenny has said, you know, fathers like their son to go in their footsteps. And he was like, Damon's the son that his son. Kenny's father was in the Marines. That's why Damon went to the Marines. Kenny's father was in corrections, and
Damon's in
corrections. So,
you know,
so he was influenced by.
You know, I think we need to do a DNA test. Something's going on.
Don't do that.
Was Papa really a Rolling Stone? Okay. This and many more questions will be answered on the People Before Politics radio show. You know, so I'm out here. We're doing a lot of work. I mean, I sit on boards. As you know, I'm one of the founders of the Westchester Black Political Conference. I am a co-founder of the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. I sit on the New York Civil Liberty Union Board, their advisory board. I work, you know, during the day as an employment case manager, and I am the program director for the Urban League Social Responsibility Unit.
Congratulations on your centennial.
So now we're doing that, you know, and all of this work that I'm doing, we're trying to put mechanisms in place so that when family members have to deal with things like this, or God forbid they have to, we have concrete stuff on the books. You see, this is why I laugh sometimes when they talk about this executive order that the governor wrote. What is it, 147A, for that calls for independent prosecuting and questionable police shootings, or, you know, why did the governor have to do that?
Since the AG already had the power to investigate anything they want.
The AG has the power. The AG can make the call. If you're the DA, I can say, hey, AJ, that case, you're not touching it. I'm sending my guys down there. We're taking it.
Right.
Cut and dry.
Right.
I mean, you are Westchester County and New York State's top cop. Okay, so you have to be on that front line and make that decision on your own. You didn't need the governor to sign an executive order, which means that when he leaves, the executive order leaves.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
So
People don't understand that. Yeah. We're finding that out with Obama. Like the executive orders, they're trying to take all of them out.
Yes.
Right now. Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, when we talk about support out here, I always try to encourage people to come out, stand with my family and I on the 19th if you can. If you can, I understand that as well. But I always say understand that there's a difference between being a part of a movement and following a movement. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Hashtag Justice for Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. That's not being a part of a movement. You're following a movement. It's like, what's the next thing trending? I can't breathe. You know, Have you ever met the family of Eric Gardner? Have you ever met the family of Oscar Grant? Have you ever met the family of Ramarley Graham, of Delron Smalls, of Akai Gurley? Have you ever met these family members? I have.
Yeah, I've talked to some of the ones.
I've sat there with them and saw tears in their eyes.
Right.
I think one of the hardest things was we were at an event one time, and I was with Carol Gray, Kamani Gray's mother. And one simple question was asked: tell us about your son. And she just totally broke down. And it hurt my heart, because to see a mother cry like that. Now, people will tell me, oh, you're strong, and we admire your strength. And, you stand on that front line and you keep fighting and you don't give up. They killed your father. And I say, yeah. But I don't know if I could have that same type of strength if it was one of my kids. I don't know. The way these mothers and fathers stand on that front line fighting for their children.
Yes.
I don't know if I could have that same type of strength. I would like to think.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political.
Hit the wrong button.
Oh. You pushing wrong buttons over there. It kind of fell in right on time.
Right. It was meant to be. Yeah.
It kind of fell in right on time. Like I tell people, understand this. We are 2.5 times more likely to be shot and killed by law enforcement. I could be in my African American College Alliance.
Shout out to Chris Latt.
Chris Latt, my man. Shameless plug.
Yeah.
We're doing it anyway. Good brother. He helped me get my Justice for Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. shirts, by the way. When I couldn't turn to anybody else to get it, he came through with me with that. But I could be dressed like this. I could be in a suit and tie. I always say I could speak the Queen's English, but I can't change my skin color. And you already have this perception of who I am or who you think I am. So when people say, oh, you must hate the police, no. I don't hate law enforcement. I hate the system that they are permitted to operate under. That is what I hate. And that is what we need to change. And if we can change that, then we won't have those same types of issues. If we begin to really go back to the days of a village raising a child in our communities, these things, but don't sit there and tell me, oh, if they pull their pants up, maybe they won't get shot by the cops. How ignorant of a statement is that?
Yeah. So what was the case with the little boy in Cleveland?
Oh, well,
his pants wasn't down.
Right.
His pants wasn't down. What's the excuse there?
That officer jumped out the car and in less than 3 seconds fired on Tamir Wright.
And what was the case in your father's case? Your father wasn't walking around pants sagging.
Well, you were responding to a medical emergency.
Right.
There was no crime in progress. So these are the issues, but a lot of people, even to this day, here we are 7 years later, and I can speak in the city of White Plains, and I'll say before I start speaking, show of hands how many people have heard about the killing of Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. And not many hands go up. And then when I begin to talk about it, then some of them will say, oh, I did hear about that. Or then they'll say, what? They called him a nigger? They did? How do you not know these things?
I just had a conversation with a family member explaining that he wasn't a hatchet wielding lunatic. Like, he didn't come at the cops trying to attack them, like, because that's what they heard. He had some kind of I've just explained this within the last 7 days, like literally to a family member, because that's what they heard.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know you, they don't know the situation, they don't live in Westchester, but that's what they heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. After I broke them down, I sent them the audio. I sent them the audio of the life alert, life aid, I think, video. The audio. I sent them all that. I sent them the articles. Then they were like, "Oh my God, I didn't know all of this." But they were still in the impression 7 days ago that he attacked them with some kind of hatchet or something.
So I'll tell people, even with this situation, let's go to the piece where they call my father a nigga. Okay. I tell people, I have the audio on my Facebook page. It's on my Facebook page. It's on my Instagram.
It's on Black Westchester.
It's on Black Westchester. Listen to it. The DA, Janet D. Fior, said that, yes, the police officer did call Mr. Chamberlain a nigger. And it is not something that we tolerate from our employees. But he said it as a tactic to distract Mr. Chamberlain. So she said that he said it at the window. Listen to the audio. Listen to the audio. You hear my father say, don't do that. Don't do that, officer. I'm telling you I'm okay. And right at that point, you hear someone say, I don't give a F, nigga.
Right.
So how is that at the window?
Right.
How is that at the window? That's not at the window. That's at the door. But she was smart and she moved it to the window. Why?
Exactly.
Because if you say, well, they called Mr. Chamberlain a nigga, took the door off his hinges, tasered him, beanbagged him, and then shot him.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a hate crime to me. So now,
and a 68-year-old man that they explained that one of the beanbags had the impact of a Nolan Ryan fastball or a Mike Tyson punch.
Correct.
That 68-year-old elderly man that's sick
with a heart condition
was able to take
COPD.
3 of those and still come at them.
Right.
I don't know if I would still be standing after 3 of those, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you got to put those things in context.
Highly implausible.
Yeah. I think that might buckle Damon, as big as he is. That might buckle him a little bit.
Listen, nobody wants to get hit with those beanbag shotgun rounds.
Right.
Exactly. I don't want to get hit
It's
with
just it's very painful.
You heard David, he said, I don't want to get hit with
But you know what it shows, I mean, the reaction of the district attorney to the shooting of Kenny's father and the words that came out of her mouth, what kills, like to me, it's like his father was killed twice, because anybody with common sense, when they listen to what she said, as a black person, should have been outraged, right? When you have simple silence from what we call black leaders in Westchester County, I mean, what other case in the country, in the history of police brutality, where you literally have police on audio calling a man a nigger, then killing him, right? And there's no outrage, right? There's no outrage from the political people, black, especially the black ones. There's no outrage from the pastors. There's no outrage from nobody but the family and those supporters of the family, and then the supporters that have come along. But there wasn't any outrage, especially from the faith-based community. I mean, to see them flock, and I'm talking about the black ones, especially the black ones, to see them flock to a high school that has a swastika on it, and they flock and they have this great Westchester County faith-based, we're not tolerating bigotry, blah, 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 for a swastika, a spray can, spraying it on the side of a building. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was killed. Just some paint on the building.
That
when
was
it comes to
that was painted over at some point.
Right, that you could just clean, wash. I mean, that was gone by the end of the day. Right? But here's a loss of life. Right? Here's allegedly trained officers of the law that are paid by our tax dollars that came into a man's house, called him a nigger. And it's all on audio, and there was no outrage. So I mean, look, and when it comes to voting and using our vote to have power, what do we do? We turn around, we vote the DA back again, we give her our vote, we vote the mayor back in that didn't have no accountability of his officers.
And I was disappointed about that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's what it is. The same people that marched, right? The same people that's going to be at Kenny's, the celebration, candlelight vigil. We're going to be standing there. Same people voted Roach in for another term. You know, and it's the point. It's like, yo, like, what in the world are we doing here? Like, have we forgot, or are we just here for feel-good moments just to say that we're a part of something, you know, because we feel sorry for Kenny, but we're going to be here, but you're going to go in the voting booth and you're going to put the mayor right back in. All the city council people that didn't do anything, right? So, I mean, like when do we have outrage as black people in Westchester County? When do we stop being bamboozled, you know, by our black leadership when we get nothing? We literally get nothing. We put them in office, we get nothing for our vote. Some little positions that don't mean literally nothing. Positions that are not policy changing positions. They're just political appointees that's getting the pension. But in the overall position, we're powerless to change our condition. And we don't even want it because we don't even hold anybody accountable. Mm-hmm. That would not happen to any other ethnic group. It doesn't happen to any other ethnic group for black people. We still will vote for our oppressor faithfully just because they put a D in front of their name that they're Democrat.
Absolutely. Recently, rapper actor T.I. posted on Instagram, it amazes him that they're more angry at a black man taking a knee than white law enforcement killing black people.
Exactly.
And he caught a lot of flack from a lot of different groups because of that post. But I support that. I shared that post because I support that. They're angry over a black man taking a knee. You know what I'm saying? And that particular black man who they said was disrespecting veterans, and his reply was that he was standing for veterans that had got killed by the police, like Kenneth Chamberlain. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, we got it, man. We have to wake up. We have to wake up as a people. You know, I mean, because we continue to be disrespected. You know, and then the same people will come every election day. They send the same people, and we give our votes away.
Just because they show up in their church 2 weeks or a month before the election, or they give out awards at basketball tournaments, or they giving out hot dogs and hamburgers in the park.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting. I had a conversation with a couple of White Plains police officers, white police officers, and we were having a conversation, and they said to me, it's not a question of if someone gets killed in White Plains by a law enforcement officer, it's when it happens again. Mm-hmm. Because Now, that's interesting when you hear a law enforcement officer say it's going to happen again in the city of White Plains. And this is why I talk to them and I try to get the communities to understand that you have to be involved. You have to be more involved in this process. You know, if I tell people, you know, people say, well, rallying doesn't get you anywhere. Protesting doesn't get you anywhere. I'm not all for marching. I said, look, I have my issues with marching as well. But I said, okay, if we're going to march, let's march to the elected officials' office. Let's go up inside there and tell the elected officials what we want, what our demands are.
Marching your city council.
Okay, so it's a difference between just marching on the street with posters and signs and yelling no justice, no peace. It's another thing to march right up inside their office. They don't like that.
And the women showed that during the Kavanaugh hearing. You saw how the women
Correct.
showed up? They showed up in all of their offices.
You know,
Harassed them in the elevator.
they don't like that.
As did indivisible more generally over the past two years.
Right.
You know, so
Man, you can't get black people. You cannot get black people to do all that.
Especially if there's a
You got
football
to-
game.
I mean,
on.
look,
You
but
have to-
I gotta
You gotta
say
have
because
fried fish and collard greens or something that got to be outside in the front. You ain't get black people.
and Jericho
You got to
DJ.
get black people coming out to it.
I mean, but it seems like there's a common theme that has been enunciated tonight by Tasha with respect to black participation in the election, get out the vote process, by Kenneth in terms of people actually putting boots on the ground and showing up at protests. And it confirms the point that I made to you earlier this week when I was up in White Plains to attend a rally to present opposition to the president's decision to force Jeff Sessions out. And one of the things I said to you, AJ, was I think I saw one person of color, one identifiable person of color other than myself. I wasn't looking in the mirror.
We should be embarrassed by the amount of people that came out in White Plains for Mueller. and not for the issue. And
we as a community have so much at stake because the normal course of business is for our young brothers especially to be shot down by police officers, but with the kind of racial hatred that the president is whipping up today, it all stands to reason that we're more likely to be on the end of a police officers, law enforcement officers,
or even
unjustified bullets.
Or even a Trayvon Martin situation.
Right.
Like just following you and, you know.
And we got to show up because there is more to life than the gratification of our own individual material needs. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have today. And it is partly what explains the behavior of our clergy and other interested parties who refuse to stand up in the face of injustice if it means that they got to put their financial well-being on the line, if they got to lose a grant, or if they got to, lose some support from, a centrist kind of political group. I mean, it's the same thing. We have got to stand up for what is just and right and fair and be willing to accept that maybe we'll have to take a little hit in our pocketbook, as well.
Damon, what's that movie we was talking about where the guy went to the block and he was talking to one of the old dudes and he was like, "Yo, what happened to all the brothers? What happened to all the activists?" He said, "They all got government jobs."
Right.
Yeah, but you know what, man? The reality is that we are too busy being niggas. I'm going to call it like I see it. We're too busy being niggas. Dr. Wesley Muhammad said it best. The nigga is the most threat to the black community than white supremacy. Right? Scientifically speaking, I always have to say that because then people going to get crazy. Scientifically speaking, a nigga is a broke down black person that is scared to fight. And that's what we're too busy being. We're too busy being niggas. We're too busy being scared.
Mm-hmm.
Scared to take over our community, scared to take over the politics in our community, scared to fight for our interests, just happy for what the oppressor gives us or what a black person put in place to keep us in place will give us. So we're scared to question that. We're just happy to get a paycheck and go on. Here, nigga, take your little Benz, take your little house, and shut the fuck up. And allow us to do the rest. That's what's going on. Because when you don't see any outrage, especially over the Kenneth Chamberlain shooting, and 7 years later, nothing has changed. They didn't do anything. And yes, them white cops were right. Another black person will get killed again. Why? Because nothing's changed. No training has changed, no accountability, no policy, same people in charge. So we will be crazy not to think it's not going to happen again. And then when it happens again, nobody's going to say anything. Because we're too busy being niggas. Maybe one day we'll stop being niggas and being black people in Westchester County, and we'll have true power. Not this symbolism bullshit with no substance, because that's what it is. Little black people here and there getting appointed little positions, but that's not power. That's not power at all.
Absolutely.
That's complacent.
Absolutely. I wanted, it's been a minute. I wanted to welcome some of the guests, some of the people tuned in. Jeff Ford from Long Island, Chris Breezy from Mount Vernon, Monica Williamson, Omi Medea from Yonkers, Tony Robinson, Lynn Woodley, Donna Boyd said, I heard about that. I'm sorry for your loss. Joe Bannister said the audio don't lie, the cops do. Janelle O'Britton said hello to everybody. D. Wilson said they killed him, then assassinated his character. That's killing him twice. It should have never happened, and they need to be accountable for it. White Plains needs to be ashamed of themselves. They should be up and outraged about this. The church leadership don't care nothing about anything except for their tithes, and that has nothing to do with God. It's the God of greed. Tasha's still tuned in. She said, compared to the silence at the murder of a black man, the pastors show more support for that than the murder. Rob Ruggiero, I'm sure I mispronounced your name. Welcome to the show. White Plains Councilwoman.
One of Mount Vernon's bravest.
Okay. Oh, hey, thank you for tuning in. White Plains Councilwoman Nadine Hunt Robinson, and Tracy Kate said everybody wants to say they're woke, but they don't want to put boots on the ground, as you put it.
Right.
So I just want to welcome all those. Anybody else I didn't mention, I apologize.
And Brother Arthur Muhammad just joined us.
Brother Arthur Muhammad, that's just still his name. I said Judge Adrian Armstrong, Marvin Church, welcome to the show, and everybody else who's tuned in on INTHEMIXXRADIO.com, which I can't see your name, or one of the other forms of social media.
You know, so, I mean, a question was asked to me now, and we talked about this before, about what does justice look like, and I said I don't know. I see justice as a theory. I haven't seen it practically applied when it comes to a black man getting justice for being wrong. Now, you'll see it in the reverse, but 7 years later, they're like, you know, and I say this all the time, what do I say now that I haven't already said 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago?
Right.
You know, hashtag justice for Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. I'll never stop fighting. You know, they will literally have to tell me, you have literally done everything you can do, Mr. Chamberlain. There's nothing else you can do before I stop. You know, and even then, I'm going to try to find another way.
Right.
I would just ask the community, stop looking at my father it's bigger than my father. The next Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. could be your loved one. You could be calling me, asking me to come stand in solidarity with you because a law enforcement officer murdered your loved one. And please, for those of you who want to justify police killings and justify it with black on black crime, stop it. Stop it. Because when you look at the offender rate and you say, okay, obviously most victims of black crimes, the offender is black. With white crimes, it's the same thing. Most white offenders and white victims, it's white. But you don't publicize white on white crime the way you do black on black crime.
Most of the mass shootings was white people going into a school or something. That's
you don't do it. So my thing is you want to honor my father. You wanna stand in solidarity with my family. Be involved in the community. It doesn't necessarily have to be with police reform. You might like working with kids. Work with kids. You might like working with the elderly. Work with the seniors. You know, you may be on the, want to start putting the gardens in your community. Do that. But do something to uplift your community. Okay, because it's all a domino effect. One affects the other. One affects the other. Okay? And I mean, I have programs that I run. I have a first suit for a second chance program that I run at my job.
Okay.
For individuals who would just come home from being incarcerated, we want you teach them skills on being employed, but now they don't have any clothes to go out there to interview for the job.
Right.
So we get that going. I've extended the olive branch several times with the city of White Plains and the police department on working with us, but again, their statement is always there's pending litigation, like they can't do it. Damon was correct when he said everybody came out when the swastika was painted on the Bronx River Parkway and at the college at SUNY Purchase, but nobody said jack when a 68-year-old man was mocked, taunted, called a nigger, and killed in his home. Nobody said a word. That's interesting. So, we understand that, yeah, there are two types of systems out there. Okay, because I've said it publicly, I've said it privately. If Kenneth and I told the mayor of White Plains, if Kenneth Chamberlain Sr.'s last name was Kenneth Greenberg or Kenneth Cohen, the outcome might be a little different. Okay, because you're going to respond differently to that community than you are to the black community. And it's a given. And people cannot sit here and pretend that I'm saying something that's not true. Okay? We can, I deal with facts. I don't deal with truth. I deal with facts. Okay? A truth can be a lie told over and over again, you'll believe it. Let's deal with facts. Facts. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Facts. Fact. Black people are 2.5 times more likely to be shot and killed by law enforcement. Facts. Okay, we are 13% of the population. So now, you're the college professor. You do the math on that, brother. Because okay, you tell me what that comes up to. Can you break it down into seconds?
All I'm going to say is very much out of proportion. And that'll capture it.
That's it. Let's get involved, people. Let's get involved in our communities. Okay? And you don't have to be violent. You don't have to do that. And like I said, never once in this fight has anybody ever heard me say that. This is why I have worked with some law enforcement organizations, because they said, we've never heard you say anything that would lead us to believe that you were promoting violence in this issue. I'm only asking that the individuals who killed my father be held accountable. and that we put laws, permanent laws on the books, not an executive order. Okay? Because we know that a DA cannot investigate a police department.
Right.
You can't do it.
That they work with. I mean,
Okay?
they depend on them.
That's
for
like them.
convictions.
That's like someone telling me to investigate you two. There is a conflict of interest. It cannot happen.
Right.
It can't happen. You work with these people every single day. You rely on them for convictions in other cases. So why am I going to do that? And 9 times out of 10, you probably know their families. You've probably been around their families. You know their wives and everything else.
Yo, I just want to say, we are coming kind of close to the end of the show. I know we started late, so we got some more time, but I wanted to make sure I give you another opportunity to uplift the date of the vigil and what that's going to be about. And I did want to say beforehand, we told my people involved in the on the front lines. A brother from Mount Vernon, he's probably not the first to say it, but Henry Terry with Snugs, and he's always said when they're protesting, when they're bringing attention to something, do not wait for the situation to hit your front door before you get involved.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have
Correct.
to wait for it to hit your front door before you get involved. So I do want to say that, and I do want to say again, and I said it before you got here, and Damon says this a lot too. We're often, especially you, in these situations, and sometimes Damon too, the ones they call when they go through these kind of situations, the first ones they call, to be there for you for when you go through something. And when Kenneth has these events, I mean, when he has these things to keep the memory of his father open, to keep the fight going, you need to come out and support. Numbers matter. Like I said, I was embarrassed by the numbers at the Mueller protest to save Mueller's job in White Plains alone. That the picture was like, oh my God, like it looked like Times Square almost for White Plains.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I've never seen that for anything that we've done. You know what I'm saying? And we need to come out like that for Kenneth Tim. And like I said, it's bigger than him, but for criminal justice reform, for justice in our community, we need to come out. So I just want to say that. I know Bob wanted to say something, and then I want Kenneth to tell us when the vigil is. Go ahead.
I just want to say that I think one of the justifications that we often give for not participating in these kind of political actions is that, as Kenneth said, oh, it's not going to do any good, they're not going to respond. Too often we take the view that people are supposed to act out of moral sympathy for us, and that's what's going to make them do the right thing, and that's not true. Mm-hmm. Our job is to make them. We know many a story where an important leader, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, in the lead up to the March on Washington during World War II, told A. Philip Randolph and the rest of the civil rights leaders, if you do not like segregation in the defense industry, I don't like it either. Now, give me a reason to change it. Make me change it. Things are not going to change until we...
Said the same thing to Martin
yes.
Luther King. Yes.
So it's a constant refrain, but we're not getting the message. We have to show up in critical numbers, whether it's on the streets, in the ballot box, testifying,
City
wherever it
council
is.
meetings.
The same thing. We got to be there. And if we're not there, then no one is going to do our bidding for us.
Correct.
We are abdicating our responsibility as much as any other group is abdicating their responsibility to, respond morally to us. Mm-hmm. So that's my reminder to everyone. You know what? I'm not a slave. My great-grandparents were enslaved. But the reason that things have changed is because they said to themselves, there's something I could do to change this shit. Mm-hmm. And they fought during slavery when conditions were far more oppressive than they are today. And yet, when we find ourselves having a lot more latitude to do things, to vote, to protest, we're just like, you know what? We can't do, nothing's ever changed. A lot has changed. I don't live in Jim Crow segregation in quite the same way.
The fact that we had this election and black and brown people was able to get out there and vote, and women for that matter, that made a difference, and even run in those elections, means something has changed. Like, I mean, there was a time when none of that could have happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, Monday, November 19th at 7 p.m. at the White Plains Department of Public Safety, 77 South Lexington Avenue in White Plains, New York. We will gather there for a day of remembrance for the killing of my father, Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. There will be people who will be speaking. They will be giving you information, talking about everything from voting to becoming a part of some of the organizations. I mean, I want it to be a productive evening. I don't want people to just be there and feel sad and be down. I want it to be productive. So the people who are speaking are going to be talking about how we can affect positive change, what we need to do in order to create this change. But one of the things is that people have to come out. We have to come out. It's not going to kill you to come out there for an hour, you know, and stand with us and get this information and take this food back and give it to other people. Give it to other people. Or when you do come to an event, bring somebody with you. Just bring one person, you know, because you might spark that person's mind and get them involved, you know. And outside of that, my family and other families who are dealing with this type of issue, for those of you who are on the front lines, who are standing with us, we appreciate you more than you know. Because if it weren't for you standing with us, giving us encouraging words every now and again, we probably would fall. Because we need that type of support, because these fights are hard. You know, I could get into the sleepless nights and everything else, and the coulda, shoulda, wouldas in situations like this. But, you know, when people will tell you, oh, you had no control over the events that took place, that's easier said than really acknowledged, especially when you have the type of personality that I have. I consider myself to be a fixer, and because I can't fix something, it will eat at me and eat at me and eat at me. You know, so there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about my father. There's not a day that goes by that I don't miss him. There's not a day that goes by that I don't wish that I could have got there 15 minutes before they made entry.
Mm. Your councilwoman, Nadine Hunt Robinson, said, "Thank you, Kenneth, for your continued advocacy. I'm sorry for your loss. I did participate in the march. I understand the city has a unit now to deal with people in distress."
Well,
and whatever your comment is, I need you to make it brief, because we really come to
it's my understanding that the White Plains Police Department also has social workers on call even on the weekends now, and that was as a result of the issue or the killing of my father. I will leave it there. I don't know how productive it is. I don't know how successful they are, because the White Plains Police Department does not engage with me. They do not try to collaborate or work with me in trying to affect positive change out there in the city. So I can't speak to it. I can say that, you know, it's one thing to participate in a march. It's one thing to say that you're there or be there, but we need to see something more concrete out there. We need to see these elected officials out there really doing something. Impress me, hold officers accountable, make them arrest them, make them walk perk lines, you know, take those jobs away from them.
Hold hearings.
She said there's more protocols, but yes, the more people need to put more pressure. We all need to continue to press. That was what she said. So again, the night is Monday, November 19th. Give the address one more time just so everybody get it.
At 7 p.m. in front of the White Plains Police Department, Department of Public Safety. That's 77 South Lexington Avenue in White Plains, New York.
Damon, briefly, any last words? Briefly.
Yeah. No, just real quick. I think people need to show up. It's just not a White Plains issue. Every major police department in Westchester County that have over 200 full-time officers have had an incident of questionable police actions or questionable police shootings. So this is not just a White Plains issue. This is an issue that affects people throughout Westchester County. So, I mean, it would behoove us to to come out and show support, for this and bring the information back to the different communities throughout Westchester County.
Thank you. And with that, we coming to the close of the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm sorry if I didn't get to respond to you, and McDermott and the others that who tuned in. This look out for this the Black Westchester 2018 midterm election edition of Black Westchester this Tuesday. It'll be hitting streets this week. December will be on time as usual. This is Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday, 6 to 8 on INTHEMIXXRADIO.com, giving you real talk for the community since 2014. Until next week, peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's